conflict. Somebody finna get their ass kicked. All right, let me see. Ba-ba-da-ba. Ba-da-ba-da. All right, let's see what's going on in pound 8chan. Let me see. Look at this nerd. That's how wild I am. Jesus. This is not good, by the way. This tepahe. I tried to mix up the stream, but it's not helping. Not in the slightest there. But it is what it is. It ain't what it ain't. Either you can or you can't. Right, let me just see if there's anybody in IRC that I can cajole into da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Let's see. Yeah. Let us begin. So I think this is a direct copy of the text. Wait, did we do chapter 27 just now? Author dashboard, Robin the Prodigy. Yeah, 27 we just completed. So we're on the right place. So, oh, my eyes don't focus after I wake up. It's always hard. Yeah, I don't know if it used to be that way, but now after I wake up for like a solid half an hour, it might just be like lying in bed playing video on my phone too. But the second phase of typical reaction to hospitalization has been characterized as one of despair. Even if his physical condition is good, he does not appear to be interested in visitors and in playing. Attempts to entertain him are often rejected. Childhood Leukemia, a pamphlet for parents. U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. So we say what year this was, but this is very much an artifact of its time, where they talk about the child as a he. This is before we started to like move into any kind of attempt to put like gender neutral pronouns or whatever into like government literature. So it's a very old school pamphlet. This is one that actually exists, and I think we have an image of it up here a couple chapters earlier. Let me roll up through all this thing. So I want to take a look at the pamphlet again, because I think it comes up a bit in the chapter. As I run through 20 pages of goblins and sorcery and stuff. Gah. Let me see. Yeah, so we moved around all the chapters or whatever. But it's this pamphlet here, which was digitized by Google from the University of Chicago. And you can see this like very 50s style of drawing. You know, like the dark blues, the outlines that aren't complete. Let me see. And I can't remember what year this came out, but I think it came out in the 60s at some point. All right, so let's get back to chapter 28. Boom. Let me see. And I think we can make it. I just want to make it through this one chapter before we, well, yeah, before the UFC starts at like 5 o'clock. So it's going to be a short session. Hopefully the chapter's not too long, and hopefully it's not too janky. Childhood Leukemia, a pamphlet for parents, U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. As the candles flickered, the wind whipped dust against the kitchen window in a long, shivery whisper. The wind whipped dust against the kitchen window in a long, shivery whisper. The candles flickered, and Una felt hairs rise at the back of her neck. She read from a prayer book and began the novena. She read from a prayer book and began today's portion of the novena to Saint Peregrine. Actually, hold up. I think if I pause over here, 1 second, and I'll find this thing. All right, and shout outs to all the people who have made it onto here and to me, contributing by cursing at everything. So I found this pamphlet here, the Cancer Saint, Saint Peregrine, right here. And so, here, let me get it into some kind of focus. Divine Word publications from way back. Here, let me get my dumb head out of the way. Yeah, from way back in God knows when. But, Sister's Way of the Cross, Holy Hour, or whatever. Look at how old and crazy this is. It's pretty wild there. I read through it as part of the research for this thing. The wind whipped dust against the kitchen window in a long, shivery whisper. The candles flickered. The candles flickered in the draught, and Una felt hairs rise at the back of her neck. She read from a prayer book and began today's portion of the novena to Saint Peregrine. Dear Holy Servant of God, Saint Peregrine, I pray today for healing. Intercede for us. God healed you of cancers, and others were healed by your prayers. Please pray for the physical healing of A coyote cried out, and Una jolted in place. It was too close to the house. She worried she'd turn around and see it peering in the kitchen window. In the window. She got up. She found her nerve, got up, and peered outside. Nothing but dust in the wind. Dust in the wind. The spell was broken. Pinches alemanas. No, it'd be pinches alemanas. Pinches alemanas. Stupid varmints. Una slid a knife from the butcher block, then thought better of it. Coyotes couldn't get inside. Oh, okay. Oh, you don't need the comma on the clause because it's at the end of the sentence. That's why. Coyotes couldn't get inside. She was more likely to stick herself, blundering around in the dark. The little monsters dared more every night. 2 weeks ago, she'd called the city to complain. Nothing came of it. The next election wasn't until 81. She wondered if she'd be there to see it. The spell was broken. Yeah, we don't need 2 repetitions of this. Like a tarot magician, all of Una's implements were laid out in a ring of candlelight on the kitchen table. The paintbrush, her magic wand, the Bible, her sword, the rainy day jar with pennies for pentacles, her favorite cup, a Talavera mug from Zacatecas. It was full of lukewarm chamomile tea. At the center of it all was the prayer book, The Cancer Saint, by Divine Word Publications. Boom, right there. Stolen from the pages of whatever. None of it had helped. It was too dark to paint now. I say there weren't enough jars in the quarter? Why? This is insane. How did that make it through an edit? It was too dark to paint. There weren't enough quarters in the jar to buy a miracle. The tea had not brought sleep. It wasn't even 10 yet. There was so much night ahead and nothing to fill it. It wasn't even 10 o'clock yet. There was so much night ahead and nothing to fill it. Selfishly, she wanted to call Duke Games and tell Robin to come home. She resisted. It would be better to wait until the power was back to drive home. It would be better to wait until the power was up to drive. If she was anxious and lonely, it was their own problem. Why should they both suffer? The wind wailed on, having a bad night as well. The wind wailed. Having a bad night as well. Una had a crazy thought to step out the back door and howl along. Una had a crazy thought to step out the back door and howl herself and scare the coyotes off. If the neighbors didn't like it, they could stuff themselves. Of course, she did nothing of the sort. All that was left was the Bible. She set her hand on the leather cover and tried to draw strength. Nothing. With a sigh so deep her eyes closed, Una pushed the good book away. Wasn't that a bit blasphemous? Probably. She was so tired. She prayed and prayed, but nothing changed. Feeling guilty, she recited the Novena is not capital. Feeling guilty, she recited the novena portion again, twice, just in case she missed anything. We are humbled by our physical limitations and ailments. We are so weak and so powerless. We are completely dependent upon God. And so we ask that you pray for us. All right, and that should be italics. Que verdad. How true. She looked at the table. All her distractions had failed her. She was just like Robin and Hector, laying out her toys to pretend she had control. It was all for nothing. Every drop the brush laid would flake away in the sun. The coin she squirreled away would be spent. The cup would dry up. The family Bible would wind up in a thrift store or a landfill. In a flash of anger, Una picked up her cup. Again, she did nothing. Who was she fooling? If she threw her favorite cup across the room like a loon, guess who would have to pick up the pieces? With a wince, she rose and rinsed it in the sink. The Bible went back onto its table. The birds flew into the shoebox. She tucked the rainy day jar back on top of the refrigerator. She sat back into her chair. There was a long, empty night ahead. Across from her, in the dark, was the empty chair where Hector was supposed to be. Now, I don't know if those two commas need to be there, because I guarantee I ran this through a proofreader, and it did not think so. Let's check again with the Oracle. The Oracle. Okay. Yeah, so these are optional commas, and they don't really need to be there. Across from her in the dark was the empty chair where Hector was supposed to be. Worse than the arthritis, his absence ached every second of the day. At night, it grew acute. There was no one to make her laugh, to put a hand over hers and lie that it would be all right. Maybe you should talk to someone. Maybe you should go. Thoughts of Dr. Suarez made Una mad all over again. 90% chance of remission, she'd said. The numbers looked so good until they didn't. Una got up and began to pace, never mind the pain. She needed something to do or she would go crazy. Taking a candle to the parlor closet, Una found the accordion binder and a stack of papers she needed to file. She'd been putting this off for a while because she knew it would hurt. Robin Martillo was written on the pocket tab. His whole life was inside, kept in meticulous chronological order. His social security card and birth certificate were first. Una had insisted on keeping the originals. Lucinda could never be trusted with anything important. She thumbed past the immunization records to tickets from when Hector and Una took Robin to Disneyland during one of Lucinda's disappearances. From the Amarillo years, she had almost nothing. All of that was in the Lucinda folder, mostly court paperwork. There was just one newspaper clipping from the Amarillo Globe-Times. Robin had mailed it to her himself. The article was about the Catholic Athletic League sponsoring youth soccer in Old Jacinto. What is that? Old Jacinto? Or is that one of those? Old Jacinto. There was a picture of Robin in a jersey that was 2 sizes too big. He was rail thin and smiling with his hair in his eyes. Una had cried all night about that one. Her only grandson, an emblem of poverty. He was just a child, proud to have his picture in the paper. She kept it anyway. Along with all the official bits, Una had every scrap of paper or pamphlet, Along with all the official bits, Una had every scrap of paper a doctor or dentist had ever given her. Before this year, there was nothing serious. Robin was always lucky, until he wasn't. The 1979 pocket bulged, and there was more to add. All the paperwork for the first round of treatment and his release. Admissions, diagnosis, treatment plans, waivers, and legal petitions. It was almost a full-time job to get Robin covered under her benefits. Piece by piece, she filed all the recent paperwork away. Everything was in order, but nothing was at peace. A bright blue corner jutted from the bunch. Una fished it out. Childhood leukemia, a pamphlet for parents. Why had she kept this? A nurse had given it to her, right as this all began. The pamphlet was old and out of date, and Una could relate. It talked of Vistacrine like a new marvel when it hadn't worked at all. She closed it. Let's see. Actually glad nobody's here for this particular chapter because it's so brooding and gloomy. It's only right to edit this in silence, alone in the darkness here. The nurse had given it to her, right as this all began. The pamphlet was old and out of date, and Una could relate. It talked up Vistacrine like a new marvel when it hadn't worked at all. Una closed the pamphlet and stared at the cover. It was royal blue, with a tired, cartoony style that reminded her of a ticket envelope for a Greyhound bus. There were a dozen of those tickets in the Una file, the one she didn't dare open. It all flooded back. All the trips to Salinas, when Hector was stationed at Fort Ord 1,000 miles away. The journey took all day and all night. She would sip from a thermos of coffee while the dawn broke over the painted desert. Past the Jackrabbit trading post, the air conditioner would falter, always. While the old ladies were fanning themselves, her mind would race ahead. She read Hector's letters so many times she could recite them. As the bus wove down the mountains into the Central Valley, her heart would race until she could feel her pulse in her fingertips. It was impossible to believe she'd ever been so young, ever wanted anything so much. Now those fingers were gnarled with arthritis. Hector was gone. 10,000 days they'd sat together for breakfast at this table. He always had a smile for her, even after their biggest fights. He hadn't even been gone for 2 years. Already she couldn't remember his face. Each time she tried, it was just an image from a picture. She filed the pamphlet away and looped the string to close the binder. The hole never closed. It grew wider all the time. Okay, and you need a semicolon there, because it grew wider all the time and the hole never closed are independent clauses. Hachi! Hachi! Code out. Dog barks at anything. She shut her eyes tight, but could not cry. The power came back on. The little speaker in the radio thumped, and the station came back fuzzy as the oscillator drifted and then synchronized. Al Hurricane began to sing Vestido Mojado. The tears came before the first chorus. So Vestido Mojado is a wet dress, and it's about a woman who is marrying the wrong guy, and she cries so much that her dress is wet. And we talk a little bit more about that particular style of Mexican singing that was popular back then. Al Hurricane is dope. He has an eye patch from a knife fight, and he and his brother did all kinds of wild stuff. Interesting. I just love all the stuff I found out during research for this guy. All right, and then the next chapter is a fantasy chapter, so we can stop here, and we're just one chapter away from. All right, and obviously. No, I think this is chapter 28. And then the one we're looking at now is chapter 29. Vestido Mojado. All right, cool. Cool. All right, so I think we can publish that guy. So really, we have 2 more chapters until we get to the halfway point of this novel, which, as I've said multiple times, has 60 chapters. I think the chapters get shorter towards the end. And this one, all right, let me just take a gander. I believe that this is 1,100 words, if it's even that. It might be 900. Let's take a look at the dashboard. I don't know, like 1489, so that's not too bad. Which means that we have added 6,000 words per day, which is better than our average of about 5,000. Even though I was hung over as what? And then pretty soon the UFC is going to start. I'm going to turn it on upstairs and party with my dogs, make some hot wings in the air fryer, and then drink a bunch of beer and feel sorry for myself. Woo dog! I don't really have anything to feel sorry for myself about at the moment there. It's been a good weekend. Good show, good everything. Life is good. And dogs are healthy. I'm alive. It's all good in the hood. But you proved us wrong. You proved us wrong. All right, cool. Oh, and I didn't take my own advice to change this up. So